We are all aware that Uganda is a country that is dependent to a greater extent on agriculture. Our economy is agricultural-led, and most of our people are still peasants. Thank you very much for your question. Indeed, we are all aware that Uganda is a country that is dependent to a greater extent on agriculture. Our economy is agricultural-led, and most of our people are still peasants, depending on food production for the stomach. You remember very well that the country has put in place a parish development model program that is meant to get the 29 or is it 30% of the population that are still dependent on peasantry agriculture to begin producing for the economy. So, well, you are saying that the deputy governor of Uganda recommended that agricultural production should start to be taxed. I'm afraid I may not support that position, bearing in mind that we are still struggling to bring out of poverty the 29% of Ugandans who are producing for the stomach. Just imagine beginning to tax those people, those who are producing just for the stomach. What will happen? It means you are adding salt to injury. So let's first fight. Boost productivity. The aim, one of the major aims of the parish development model is to boost production and productivity of agricultural products. Once you have done that, then you will be on the right path to begin taxing. But that should not exonerate people who are actually doing very well. We have farmers who can be taxed. We have farmers, those who have over 10,000 cattle, for example. How much do they sell? I don't know how much tax President Museveni pays. He has several farms, and he's a proud farmer. He always tells you, when I retire, I will go to my farms in Rwaktura or in other places. So maybe such are the farmers the deputy governor should be targeting. But we have farmers who are already farming on a large scale. Those ones, yes, for sure, they should be taxed. We have crop farmers in large acreages, thousands and thousands of hectares. Perhaps those ones would be taxed. But of course, all in all, we need to look at our economy holistically before you take any such a policy decision. I trust that the deputy governor, being a doctor of economics, before he uttered such a statement, he must have analyzed it. And I think he is the rightful person to answer your question whether we should begin taxing agricultural production and specifically which category of farmers should be taxed. I would think that there should be, or there will be a need, if we are to take such a policy, of categorizing farmers. Otherwise, the 29% living in below the poverty line may not be the right ones to be taxed. We need to help them to get out of poverty. But any other categories above that, perhaps maybe a thorough consideration needs to be done first before actually we even cripple our economy. This economy is dependent on agriculture. But how many people are actually actively supporting the economy on that regard? I'm also aware that there is a value addition, and we need to be stressing the importance of value addition. How can we add value to our agricultural products and then we tax those products that we have added value to? Maybe that could be the right path to pursue. But just to begin taxing people from the farm gates, that may cripple production and productivity. So really, it is something that needs careful and thorough study. I thank you.
And of course, that is a statement coming in from there in regard to taxation of Uganda's agriculture sector and why most of the legislators, case in point, that is coming in from this same update regarding the fact that, well, when you look at the agricultural sector in Uganda, most of the key players may not be able to pay these taxes. Now, according to Honorable Tala Emmanuel, who is the Member of Parliament for Budama West South constituency, for West Budama South constituency, does believe that it should, government should first of all focus on productivity, then issue out the issue to do with taxation. So we should first of all boost productivity, and then also large-scale farmers should as well pay, because if we are to push this to the agriculture sector, you get to realize that it's not something that we're going to be looking at and not focusing on how it is going to be executed. Because in Uganda, the taxation of the agriculture sector has historically been the subject of intense political contestation. And when in 2018 Parliament did adopt a revised format of setting up this taxation in the agriculture sector, it has always created tension amongst the other. So when you look at the other situations, many Ugandans don't even know that agriculture-based income is taxable. As a result, compliance with existing legislation is generally low, and not all of them do have the idea about taxes that are available. But if I'm to break down for you as far as Section 10(1), agriculture income is earned by the taxpayer. For example, in India, it is, if you look at countries like India, the taxpayer is exempt from this kind of tax. So many Ugandans for now don't even know that agriculture-based income is taxable. But besides the same situation, Honorable Sebamala does believe that it is far better if we can, Honorable Otala rather, does believe that it is far better that if government boosts productivity within the sector for all those, either the small scale as well as the large scale, but mainly also focusing that the large scale farmers should as well pay these taxes. And switching our eyes away from the business update, now let's get on to the press review. With the press review, General Salim Saleh has spoken out on Lukwago links according to the New Vision. As the opposition leader says, it is a blackmail from the general. Then furthermore, private schools have protested the new school fees policy. This is courtesy of the New Vision, and of course they were addressing the press yesterday. If school fees are controlled by the government, the appropriators are saying that it will impact the quality of education offered by some of these schools. And the cost of operations, the unit cost of study, according to the appropriators, should consider the meals offered as well as other facilities, then also the number of staff employed per school. This is according to what the private schools are apparently trying to bring out to the government. So they have opposed the government's new guidelines. Just recently, after government released a fees cap, proposed fees cap for the schools or the institutions, the education institutions within the country, whereby they have a minimum, and of course they should not be exceeding it. That is according to what the government had to release. Then there is also a new research to increase groundnut production. This is also with the new vision this morning. Where is the research? How has it been very fundamental? Then you will definitely get more from that in here. And as well as we continue to look through what is coming in from the press review this morning, is that it will be dry up to the end of February according to the weather forecast. So those in the agriculture sector and any kind of person who is actually more worried about the current weather conditions, the weather forecast clearly shows that it's likely to be dry up to the end of February. So it's a 2-month situation where farmers have been encouraged now to avoid wasteful consumption of food and immediate sale of harvests for food security, because it's not likely to be a better season for planting. Now, also, on the other hand, minister and stakeholders have protested tourism sector budget cut. This is coming in from the 105 billion shillings deficit will be adversely affecting the implementation of various programs, according to the Ministry of Tourism. Remember, with the CNN index, Uganda was highlighted to be one of the top destinations of 2023, the top tourist destinations of 2023. So that means the tourism sector has been performing so well, and they do believe that these particular cuts on their budget will definitely affect them. So they are protesting that particular cut of the tourism sector. Now, the Uganda Tourism Board chairperson, Migereko, has as well had his say on the same matter. As you can definitely get that more from the new vision this morning. Lots of key expectations as a breakdown of more sectors within the new vision in regards to what should be expected ahead of 2023. Now, also crossing over to the Daily Monitor, private schools reject new government fees policy. They are apparently saying no, thank you, appropriate to say, because of the huge investments they make in the sector. Now, the school fees policy that is awaiting cabinet approval will push them out of the business because it would set unfavorable fees caps. This is according to what is coming in here with the Daily Monitor. Now, besides the same situation, as you can definitely see, there are more common cuts and signs you are likely to ignore. This is also coming in from here, from the Daily Monitor. Now, according to the issue to do with the stampede at Freedom City, who is to blame for the Freedom City death after the promoter was apparently remanded to Chitalia? Now, also the NSSF saga, IGG takes over the Algaba probe. This is another report that has taken its second course following the same saga that broke out last year at mid-November. Okay, now besides that same situation, now we're heading over to the traffic update this particular morning, just for you to get to understand more of which route you can definitely use at the end of the day. So as we switch our eyes down to what is coming in from the different routes within Kampala, to see which route can you decide to use if you are traveling out of the city and you're definitely heading to town, or if at all you are traveling heading into the city or out of the city, to definitely see where you're definitely going. Well, and this particular one is coming in from the Ben Chiwanuka Street, in the CBD, as you can see around the flyover, the Kampala flyover, connecting to the Chibuli Sambia lanes, as well as connecting to ShopRite, former ShopRite. As you can see, this is a former clock tower, if I'm to put it in that way, because now we do not have the tower there anymore. But for those are vehicles that are coming in from Zambia, the others are coming in from Makindi, the others are coming in from Entebbe Road, all entering the city. It is always busy at that same area. If you're to agree with me that it's one of the most busiest joining routes to the city, especially when it comes to the morning hours between 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. There's always huge traffic that is already on that traffic congestion or traffic jam. And then the same situation normally happens again at around 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Yes, the same routes that is around the former clock tower. Now, the only identification that we can use to give it to you is basically the flyover, the Kampala flyover, which is likely to be done by this very hour. So the chances are high that this flyover will start operational late 2023. And basically, as you can see, and the traffic police is already deployed at this particular route to ensure that there is a smooth flow and running of borders as well as the vehicles that are actually hitting the road. So it's entirely something that we can look at. And if you're using the routes from Entebbe, you should be already on the way coming to town, or you should be lighting up your engine at this particular time as we are kickstarting off the business day, because it does look like traffic jam has already hit. And of course, the traffic police officers are already heavily deployed, and there are some taxi operators that have already been arrested, I should say. One of the reasons as to why most are arrested is because of lack of insurance, others licenses. Has your license expired? If so, then you have to first get off the road. And these are some of the things that we continue telling people, reminding people all the time, that before you hit the road, ensure that you have your licenses in check, ensure that you do not have anything on your vehicle, or make sure that your vehicle has received that monthly or weekly service that it's supposed to be receiving, so that it is fully acceptable to hit the road, or it should be in functional mode to be acceptable on the roads in there. So as you can definitely see what is coming in from the Kampala flyover currently, thousands, of course. Normally it is something that you should be expecting, that hundreds of Ugandans are already strolling on the roads this particular morning. And when it comes to evening time, it actually turns to thousands, as most of them stroll back home, especially those who stay around areas of Namasuba, in Zambia, Chibuli, Katwe, those who stay around those particular areas, Najana, Kumbi, or you can actually name it. And most of them use the means of strolling. They will just walk back home, and others actually walk to work. If you can definitely see for yourself accordingly with what is coming in. But with that same situation, you get to realize that the road has already become too busy, so it takes you back to waking up so early in the morning to prepare yourself, so that by 7 you've already hit the road. Because once it clicks 7 and you're just leaving, it becomes very hard for you to maneuver through that heavy traffic congestion within Kampala. Well, the taxis that you're seeing on the sideways, clearly those who do not meet the standards of operating within the city, and that is why the traffic officers are always deployed to make sure that such culprits are dealt with. And of course, we keep on reminding people that, well, besides the same situation of looking at the traffic and all that, how about if we can also maintain the guidelines on the roads, because of if at all we want to prevent the accidents, we want to ensure that, well, the roads are also in good shape, or we are maintaining good use of them, is we have to follow this guideline as put in place by the city operators and of course the traffic police here in Uganda. And well, besides that same situation, that is it from the traffic updates this particular morning. After the break here on Smart Means Business, we shall be returning with Karibu East Africa, as well as looking at the SMB International News. Quite a number of things that you will definitely be experiencing from there, as we will be breaking down for you stories making headlines away from Uganda, and as well looking at stories within the East African Community region. This is Smart Means Business. I'm JORUM. We'll be right back.
Smart 24, driving business.
The Uganda Development Corporation is a government-owned investment firm tasked with promoting Uganda's industrial and economic development.
Soroti Fruit Factory is our flagship project. Its aim is to grow that business of adding value to fruits in this country. This country is endowed with a lot of resources. NADSO WC have been supplying inputs to farmers. The inputs are reaching a period where we need to add value. Talk about fruits, we are going to have a challenge if we don't move fast with the value addition component. So Soroti Fruit Factory is meant to address this gap, to process fruits, and mainly oranges and mangoes.
The Soroti Fruit Factory and Teju products are valid certification permits of UNBS because we renew them after 1 year.
Our membership are normally primary cooperatives, and we have 59 primary cooperatives. But when you translate that into individual membership, we have close to 6,000 members. Our area of coverage is very large. We cover 10 districts. We have estimated 80 million fruiting trees in Teso. And every season, we have 2 seasons, first season and second season. First season, we normally get around over 800,000 tons. That's why you find, the farmers have to look for other markets like in Kenya, Rwanda, and sometimes Southern Sudan.
We must clearly understand the aspect of a cooperative. A cooperative is a voluntary organization formed by members for the members, and it is democratic. They carry out their own decisions on how to perform. But for me, particularly the Soroti Fruit Factory was initially supposed to assist Soroti fruit growers. So what happens is that the government, in its wisdom, made a partnership. We organized the Soroti fruit growers into a cooperative society. This was an opportunity for them to come together. You produce differently, but you'll be able to market it together.
We are in a race for development with other nations. This UDC is one hell of an ammunition that we can use for our country. But we need to oil the ammunition. UDC and government and private sector, let's get our act together.
We are also the biggest makers of concentrate, orange concentrate and mango pulp in the country. For oranges, we buy Hamolin, Washington Navel, Valencia.
We used to bring it fully from import. Now part of this import we substituted with the Soroti orange. Like that way, and in future also we are, because it is available in good quality fruits, pulps are available now here.
Do take it to Soroti Fruit Factory. I have about 280 trees. Those oranges have enabled me to do so many things. We educated my children now. Many of them have graduated. I managed to build my house.
This fruit farm is quite productive. Well, this is one of the source of income for our family, to see how we can extend this farm even up to the village, because we started some in the village.
If you plant the oranges and you look after them well, by the 10th year, you will be getting 24 million from 1 acre. From 1 acre. So that's why the NRM recommended that now, for the 4 acres model, number one, coffee, if you are in an area which can grow coffee. Number two, fruits.
Smart 24, driving business.
We'll be back from the break, and of course it is 26 minutes to the top of the hour. You're watching Smart Means Business, and of course we continue to give you all the updates regarding business. Also, we are here to remind you that you can invest your money into Zabu's platform, and of course with Zabu you are investing in bonds and of course securities that are available on the platform. Zabu, which is powered by Altex East Africa, reminds you that with the USSD code *292# and just a minimum of 15,000 Ugandan shillings, you can invest in bonds and other products available on the markets. Well, the markets open at 8:15 a.m. and do close at 3:15 p.m. East African Standard Time. And please do note that these markets close during public holidays and on the weekends. So the rest of the days you'll be able to invest in these markets as well. Zabu, my money, my future. Altex East Africa says do something new. And now with the Karibu East Africa, we cross over to Tanzania, where Tanzania takes on Kenya with a 271 billion Kenyan shillings SGR link to the DRC. Now, Kenya's plan to control East Africa's logistics corridor has been put to a fresh test after Tanzania moved to extend its standard gauge railway to the neighboring Kenya's line hit a dead end in Naivasha, reigning the rivalry between the two biggest nations in the region. Now, Tanzania inked a $2.2 billion, which is approximately 271 billion Kenyan shillings deal with two Chinese contractors late last month that will see the final section of the 2,102 kilometer standard gauge railway, the longest stretch of the modern railway line onto the continent, and it will be completed by 2026. Now, the new deal brings the total cost of the railway to $10.4 billion, that is approximately 1.24 billion Kenyan shillings, and intensifies competition between Nairobi and Dar es Salaam for the dominance of the trade routes in the region. Now, analysts recall that Tanzania's signing of the contract with China Civil Engineering Construction Corporation and the China Railway Construction Corporation does give Dar a fight chance in the race to control these particular trade routes. In 2014, the government of Kenya entered into a tripartite agreement with the government of Rwanda and Uganda to construct a standard gauge railway from Mombasa through Kampala to Kigali, Rwanda. However, the SGR ended abruptly in Naivasha, with China reportedly refusing to finance the last leg of the modern railway after failing to strike an agreement with Uganda. Now, the Chinese built the SGR from Mombasa to Naivasha, which was constructed at a total cost of 628 billion Kenyan shillings with loans from the Exim Bank of China. Now, the standard gauge railway, which is Kenya's most expensive infrastructural project, has come under intense criticism for not being value for money despite its massive investments. The construction of the 506-kilometer section of the SGR in Tanzania runs from Tabora in the middle western part of the country to Kigoma in the western region of the country, onto the northeastern shores of Lake Tanganyika and close to the border with Burundi, and the DRC will now be critical in linking the landlocked countries of Rwanda, Burundi, and the DRC to the port of Dar es Salaam. Dar es Salaam port is a major competitor for Kenya's Mombasa port, with Tanzanian President Samia Suluhu Hassan noting that the completion of the SGR, which will be eventually extended to the nickel sites in Burundi, will help our country utilize its geographical advantage. And of course, Tanzania is stepping it up, following the fact that the standard gauge railway in Kenya only stops at Naivasha, and from Naivasha to Kisumu, it goes back to commuter gauge railway. From that same situation, Karibu East Africa, we cross to Kenya, where KRA, the Kenya Revenue Authority, has netted a 9.7 billion in tax amnesty initiative. The taxman collected 9.07 billion from the second phase of the tax amnesty program that ended over the weekend after 752 additional defaulters voluntarily declared unpaid taxes. The Kenya Revenue Authority had given defaulters up to the end of last week to take advantage of the voluntary tax declaration program that cautions defaulters from penalties and legal suits by up to 50% on interest and accrued penalties. The program, which helped the Kenya Revenue Authority hit its collection target for the financial year 2021 to 2022, targeted all taxpayers who had undeclared income for the period between July 2015 to June 2020. Now, the Kenya Revenue Authority is now moving to the last phase of the plan, which will now only see defaulters get up to a quarter of their interest waived from half in 2022. Now, under the program, which became effective in January 2021, defaulters who declare pending liability and pay within the past year shall enjoy a 100% interest and penalty waiver. Businesses and individuals that disclose and pay the pending tax liability within the second year of the program were to receive a remission of 50%, while payments that come in the third year will have 25% relief. Now, also on the other hand, a big chunk of the income that has so far been declared has come from 118 large taxpayers who have paid 5.13 billion shillings. This is followed by 97 million taxpayers who paid 2.6 billion in a program that targeted to collect 5 billion Kenyan shillings in its first year. Among the small taxpayers, about 1,709 have paid 2.57 billion shillings through the program that the taxman would like to use to endear itself to the public as a caring service provider. And now we head to the land of the Southern Hills, where silk production drops following Korean investors' exit. Lack of an investor led to a 43% decline in the production of silk concons in the 2021-2022 fiscal year compared to the previous year, according to reports from Rwanda. Now, silk cocoons are coverings of threads that are produced by silkworms after feeding on mulberry trees and are used in the textile industry. On the other hand, as per the 2021 to 2022 annual report by the Ministry of Agriculture and Animal Resources, the National Agriculture Exports Development Board supported farmers and cocoon production centers to rear 1,159 boxes of silkworms and the production of concons, which was 15.4 tons in the first fiscal year ended June 30 last year. The report showed that the decrease observed in the silk sheep production was particularly due to farmers that were discouraged by the departure of the previous investor in the sector. It showed that some sericulture or silk farming agriculturalists did not resume production after the termination of the contract with Hiwax Rwanda Silk Limited. That is according to information from the National Agriculture Exports Development Board, which showed that in August 2021, it took over this sericulture business after the exit of the Hiwax Rwanda Silk Limited. Talking about prices at which the cocoons were bought from farmers, it pointed out that was as a result of COVID-19. The international price of silk yarn fell by 21% in 2020 from $55.31 a kilogram in 2019 to $43.8 a kilogram in October 2020. In response to that change, It argued that the He Works Rwanda Silk Limited, in collaboration with the board in Rwanda, had to take this price valuation into account and review the cocoa pricing structure on the local market. Now, the National Agriculture Exports Development Board indicated that the price of fresh cocoa therefore decreased by 17.7% from the 3,450 Rwandese franc to 2,840 Rwandese franc a kilogram in there. So the farmers that are involved in silk production as well have recorded some drops in production. Now, with that particular one, let's head to the S&P International News to see what is making headlines away from East Africa. Well, with the international news, Tunisia's transport workers strike amid the ongoing economic woes in the North African country. So, tram and bus workers in the Tunisian capital of Tunis staged a strike over delays in salaries and the lack of the end-of-year bonus Monday, creating traffic jam across the capital. The strike is the latest in a string of similar actions as Tunisia continues to grapple with an economic crisis that has led to frequent shortage of basic goods from petrol to cooking oil. The North African nation is struggling with debts of more than 100% of gross domestic product, and it's in negotiations with the International Monetary Fund for a nearly $2 billion bailout. So, staff from the state-owned public transport firm, Trasutu, walked out and hundreds demonstrated outside the Prime Minister's office, responding to a call by the transport section of the powerful UGTT Trade Union Federation. Now, the strike froze the majority of transport services across the capital of almost 3 million people. The Transport Ministry said that the wildcard strike paralyzed transport across Greater Tunisia and, of course, distributing the functioning of public services and the interests of the citizens. It said trust to salaries had been paid starting from December 29, and then the real reason for the strike is a different set of financial demands in the form of an annual bonus to more than 7,000 staff worth more than $5 million. It said that the bonus was in the process of being paid and that it was coordinating with all concerned parties to avoid further disruptions. So Trustu, which runs around 250 bus routes and 15 tram lines, was also shut by a strike, school holidays in November, a peak time for families using the public transport. Now, the International Monetary Fund has called for the implementation of a string of politically sensitive measures, including gradually removing subsidies on basic goods and restructuring of public funds. These include Trustu as well as monopolies in water, energy, and cereals. Now, the birthplace of the Arab Spring has also been marred in political division since President Kais Saied said the dramatic power grab in July of 2021. Away from that, we head to the United States, where electronic car maker Tesla has apparently said it recorded a 1.3 million vehicles last year in regards to the delivery of the vehicles, which is 40% more than what was delivered in 2021. Now, this comes after the company delivered more than 405,000 vehicles in the last 3 months of 2022. However, the figure missed Wall Street forecast of around 430,000 deliveries of the same period. This year, the motor industry is expected to face lowering demand as potential customers worry about rising rates and recession concerns. And in a statement to investors, Tesla said it had to deal with significant COVID and supply chain related challenges throughout the year. Then, meanwhile, on Tuesday, authorities in South Korea said they would fine Tesla $2.2 million, that is approximately 1.8 million pounds, for failing to tell its customers about the shorter driving range of its electric vehicles in low temperatures. The Korea Fair Trade Commission said that the company had exaggerated the driving ranges of its cars on a single charge. Their fuel cost effectiveness compared to gasoline vehicles, as well as the performance of its superchargers, highlighting the logistics issue faced by the world's most valuable car makers. Now, the deliveries in the fourth quarter of the year were about 34,000, which is fewer than what Tesla produced. The shortfall is unusual for Tesla, as it had previously managed to deliver about as many vehicles as it produced. In October, the chief executive, Elon Musk, said he was working to resolve the issue. Like other car makers, in the year ahead, Tesla faces the challenge of the potential of slowing demand for vehicles as customers deal with rising borrowing costs and concerns about an economic slowdown. Tesla also faces competition from traditional motor manufacturing giants such as Ford and General Motors, as well as the newer entrants to the market like Rivian and Lucid in the United States and China's BYD and NIO. Now, the company is scheduled to announce financial results for the fourth quarter of 2022 and the final year as a whole on 25th of January this very year. Tesla said in a separate statement that it plans to host its investor day on March 1st and live stream the event from its Gigafactory in Texas. Now, lastly, from the international news, Nigeria is set to pay $4 billion if the loan bond swap is denied. This is according to the president, that is Buhari. Nigeria's President Muhammad Buhari says Africa's largest economy will have to pay 1.8 trillion naira. That is approximately $4 billion extra interest this year if Parliament rejects the loan to bond swap, a request from the central bank is overdraft to the government. Buhari made the comments in his budget speech to the Parliament after the signing of the 2023 budget in Tulo on Tuesday. In December, the Senate delayed the decision on the president's request to convert $53 billion worth of central bank overdrafts to the government into 40-year bonds, and after some lawmakers questioned the plan. In his speech on Tuesday, Buhari said the government currently pays a 3% margin above the central bank's lending rate of 16.5%, but his administration has negotiated a rate of 9% for these particular bonds. Now, besides the same situation, as you can see, lawmakers increased the size of the 2023 budget by 6.4% to 21.83 trillion naira. That is approximately $49 billion after they raised the assumed oil price benchmark to $75 a barrel from $70, having completed the maximum 2 terms allowed by the Constitution. Buhari is not standing for re-election, by the way, but the rising debts, weak economic growth, high inflation, and the mounting insecurity are major issues for many of the Nigerian voters. Now, the International Monetary Fund has urged Nigeria to phase out central bank financing of the government to help reduce double-digit inflation. Economists say Nigeria's government is spending more money on debt repayments than on education and health, but Buhari has said his government had no choice but to borrow its way out of 2 recessions in the past 7 months. And of course, in there, Nigeria still facing some of those particular challenges. So when we look at the rising debt, weak economic growth, high inflation, mounting insecurity, and all those are a major issue for many Nigerian voters who will definitely be looking at who will be the president by the end of this year. And Muhammad Buhari is not likely to return to the ballot this year. And that is it for the SMB International News this morning. January 4th, it is 2023, and of course the first week of the year, first week of the month, steadily moving, not too fast, I should say. But of course, it is Wednesday, and we are here to drive your business as Smart 24 TV. Wherever you are and wherever you're catching up the show from, many thanks for that particular initiative, and many thanks for that, wherever you are watching. Well, get onto our socials: Twitter, Smart 24 TV, and Facebook is Smart 24 TV Official, Instagram, Smart24_TV. Well, pretty much the other channel where you can definitely get us is onto our YouTube channel, which is the Smart 24 TV Live. Please do remember to subscribe. Not only that, meanwhile, also head on to the website www.smart24.tv for more of the business stories, headlines, and more updates. You can as well link with us on LinkedIn, Smart 24 TV, where we're at, and we continue to drive your business and making it very, very simple for you as an individual to at least position yourself ably in regards to business and understanding the scope of how everything is moving. And as well, speaking of investment, you can kickstart your investment journey today if you are yet to do so with Zabo. Zabo, which is a platform by Altex East Africa, that say your money is your future. So it's a no hassle, and you'll definitely grow your investments with the platform. Dial *292# as the USSD code and continue to drive your business by investing in your money. Well, the minimum amount is 15,000. So with 15,000 or more, you will definitely be able to invest in bonds and securities. The markets open at 8:15 a.m. and close at 3:15 p.m. The markets are only closed full time during the weekends and on public holidays. But also do remember, if you do not have an account yet, you can open up one by using your national identification number, and after registration with that NIN of yours, you will be able to invest after 24 hours of your time. Zabu, my money, my future. All Tech East Africa, do something new. You are watching Smart Means Business, and you are onto your daily Kickstarter of business information and relevant business as it comes by. I'm JORUM. So after the break, when I do return, we've got more business updates coming up. After that, also we have sports business and the entertainment business. But not only that, we have lots of other information regarding business that we have in store for you this particular morning.
Smart 24, driving business. Say goodbye to paperwork and travel costs. Now every MTN customer can register to invest in securities anytime and anywhere with Zabu in a few simple steps. Step 1. Dial *292 hash. Step 2. Select option 1. Register with Zabu. Step 3. Enter your full names. Step 4. Enter your national identification number. Step 5. Enter your national identification card number. In 24 hours, you will receive an SMS confirming your registration. Congratulations, you are now ready to invest. Smart 24, driving business. Smart 24, driving business. Smart 24, driving business.
We'll be back from the break, and of course, with this particular hour, we kick it off with inspiration and motivation. Not only that, we'll be having the social media trends coming in through, as well as more business updates. But speaking of motivation, let's start it off with our business tip of the day. And the business tip says, get organized. To achieve business success, you need to be organized. It will help you to complete tasks and stay on top of things to be done. A good way to be organized is to create a to-do list each day. That is according to what the business tip says, that get organized and of course kickstart off your day with an organized format of doing things. You as a business person, write down things that you need to do, write down what you want to achieve, and at the end of the day, you will be able to at least put yourself in a situation, one or two, of how you will be going, or how you will achieve what is necessary, or the necessity of you as an individual. So the tip says, get organized. To achieve business success, you need to be organized. To help you complete tasks and stay on top of the things to be done, and a good way to be organized is to create a to-do list each day. Now, besides the business tip, let's have more from the business quotes as well to kickstart off your motivation. And Bill Gates, who's the co-founder of Microsoft, says it's fine to celebrate success, but it's more important to heed the lessons of failure. It is fine to celebrate success, but it's more important to heed the lessons of failure. That is according to what Bill Gates has to say in this particular quote, that if you are celebrating success, it is fine, because you have to celebrate how far you've come or what you've achieved, and that is nature, that is in human nature. You have to celebrate your wins, because a win is definitely a win, but then it is also important to heed the lessons of failure. So you have to as well benchmark, or what you could say, look at your failures or your shortcomings. What haven't you achieved, and at least build on that, because that either way makes you even more stronger, and it helps you achieve even more than you can ever imagine. Bill Gates in there saying it's fine to celebrate success, but it's more important to heed the lessons of failure. And that's it for the business tips and the business quotes this particular morning. And let's switch our eyes now to the social media trends at this particular time. One of the trends on social media was basically rotating around the Visit Uganda, hashtag Visit Uganda. Of course, following the fact that CNN did put Uganda among the top travel destinations for 2023 with the kind of natural resources it has, the tourism sites and all that. Now let's have more of these particular social media trends. Frank K. Tumwebaze, Member of Parliament, Psalms 124. Frank M. Tumwebaze, MP, Psalms 124, 1 to B, says that began the hashtag New Year with a great friend of Uganda's friend, and that is His Excellency Atmasi Manzanti, Italian ambassador to Uganda, and his dear wife at Kabibi for Florence, and I accompanied them to hashtag Kibale National Park, the primate capital of the world, to see our cousins, hashtag Chips. It was a nice experience. Hashtag Visit Uganda. The Ministry of ICT and National Guidance at the Minister of ICT _UG did tweet, CNN names Uganda among the best destinations to visit in 2023, hashtag touring Uganda, hashtag explore Uganda, hashtag visit Uganda, also attaching that blog of CNN about where to travel in 2023. Kowel Komjisha at Kowel_Komjisha with a tweet that Uganda is the best tourism destination in Africa with a wide range of tourism attractions, hashtag visit Uganda. That is Kowel Komjisha with the hashtag visit Uganda. Then Prince Sanya Mose, Cool Sanya 2022 says, did you know that the elephants are the largest land mammals? They have a strong memory of decades to discover more, please. And if you want to discover more, visit Uganda. That is according to Prince Sanya Mose. Stella Mariza says Lake Mburo National Park is home to more than 300 bird species like the African grey hornbill, showbill soap, southern red bishop, white-winged warbler, and many more species. Visit Uganda. Lastly, Jami Jungle Safaris, the Jami Safari says, hashtag, did you know Uganda is rightly famous for its mountain gorillas, and seeing these animals in the wild is an experience unlike any other. Hashtag mountain gorillas, hashtag travel, hashtag visit Uganda, hashtag viral, hashtag wildlife, hashtag visit Uganda. And of course, we continue to remind people to visit Uganda. Tourism sector is shaping up and definitely recovering, but it will be me, you, and the rest of us to take part in this recovery by ensuring that we explore the Pearl of Africa, all of us, all together. That way, it will be very possible for the sector to fully recover. Tourism in it, and of course, in all aspects, as you can see from that space. Okay. Now, besides that, now let's get more from the business outlet, and this time around it's taking us to the bilateral labor agreement between Uganda and Saudi Arabia, which apparently expired in 2022. Now, the letter of good conduct is apparently one of the key things that are needed in Saudi Arabia as a requirement for anyone who's traveling. Well, pretty much a time when you know that thousands of Ugandans keep on traveling out of the country or keep on seeking for greener pastures, especially in the Middle East, and of course in what we term as labor externalization. But now the agreement between Uganda and Saudi Arabia expired in 2022. Now within this particular update, coming in from Mr. Voni Mukundane, who is the PR manager at the Uganda Association of External Recruitment Agencies, is definitely taking us through what it means for this to happen, for the agreement to expire, and how long does it take for it, or is the government working towards it, and how has it affected those recruitment agencies as well as those Ugandans who are still on contract in Saudi Arabia.
What we need to know is that the bilateral labor agreement that the government of Uganda signed with Saudi Arabia was due to expire on 27th of December 2022. And just as you saw before that, the PS of Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development issued a suspension on 23rd of December. And that particular suspension was with immediate effect, which of course was not right, was going to affect us more. The fact that we had people who had already acquired tickets, who had paid for tickets, who had people who had already acquired visas, and of course those in training centers, basically those in the process of being externalized. So we approached our lawyers, KAM, or Kampala Associated Advocates, citing, basing on the Article 10 that the PS based on, and which was giving a leeway or extra 60 days once the bilateral either expires or is terminated or is suspended. It gives it 60 more days for the process to continue because there are people in the pipeline, as I mentioned. So that was put in effect. The notice was given to the PS, and indeed the PS issued another letter, another suspension, by this time mentioning that the process will continue as it is, or as it was before the letter, until 23rd of February 2023. So that's how the process is now. Of course, it does affect because this creates a lot of speculation. Speculation not only here, but not only to our member companies, but also to our partners in Saudi Arabia, to the public, and most importantly, considering that this is the only bilateral labor agreement that the country of Uganda has. So once it gets into such a situation where it is suspended, assuming it, unfortunately, God forbid, it is not renewed, what would be the status of Ugandans who are being externalized? Knowing very well that one would easily say that maybe our ministry has been a bit slow in as far as operationalizing or even signing the other bilateral labor agreements with other countries that normally Ugandans prefer to travel to. Countries like Qatar, countries like Oman, countries like Bahrain and others, where we have so many Ugandans. And these bilaterals have been in draft form. But it's a bit unfortunate that our ministry or our government has not been able to have this signed. So once this is not in anymore, not operational anymore, the bilateral with Saudi Arabia, it would mean that many Ugandans would be now left to traffickers, because we know licensed companies will stop at that point from externalizing domestic workers. But that does not mean that people will not travel. So people will be taken just the way they've been taken to other countries where we have no bilateral. So that is what it means to us, to the sector, but also to the economy, to the nation at large, because people will not be sending in money anyway. This particular bilateral provides in Article 10, provides that once the bilateral reaches the time of either expiring or suspension, or it is either party feels they want to terminate, they're supposed to let it run for the extra or for the next 60 days. Reason being, the process of recruitment is not a one-day's process. It's a process that involves very different stages. You will have people who have acquired tickets who are due to travel. You will have who made have tickets or their bookings just a day after the expiry or the suspension. You'll have people who are in training centers who are already in the process. You have job orders that have been approved, of which people have to travel. And as we know now, the job orders are paid for. Every job vacancy that our companies acquire for Uganda, the government charges $30. So this money has already been paid, and the job orders are approved, but you can now simply say that now you're not going to take these people, and yet you have gotten money from the other parties. And unfortunately, yes, we all know that in 2021 the cabinet sat and approved a resolution to remove Interpol from Ugandans who are being externalized. For the other categories minus those who are going for security jobs. And this was simply based on the fact that for so many years that we have externalized Ugandans, and the big numbers that we've externalized, over 300,000 Ugandans, none of those had ever shown any signs of being found to be a criminal, because we all know the purpose and use of the Interpol letter or the letter of good conduct is to ascertain or to weigh or to understand the criminal record of a particular individual. So it was an easy decision for the cabinet to remove this Interpol. And business has been good, because that was a cost that was removed from the process, which was over 79,000 Uganda shillings. Now, in the new directive, we believe, based on the changes at the Saudi embassy, our members have been advised to provide letters of good conduct or Interpol certificates before they can acquire visas for their candidates to travel. So, and of course, if that is a directive from a different country, particularly Saudi Arabia, then there is no way you're going to acquire that certificate without that, to acquire that visa without that condition, meeting that condition. So our people have been, our members have been forced to get into this exercise. Of course, not a loved exercise, because it takes a lot of time to be able to acquire these certificates.
Which countries are
the certificate, the way it was being done is that it was a requirement for clearance by the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development here. In terms of the country, the other side, as I said, when it was removed in 2021, were externalizing people without these certificates. So basically, the other countries had no problem until recently when Saudi Arabia asked for it. Likewise, we still externalize Ugandans to Qatar, to UAE. People are going to different countries without these certificates, so it is not a requirement by the other countries, but rather a requirement specifically by now Saudi Arabia. It has what I would call a negative effect on us, not necessarily in terms of money, because either way it increases, first of all, the cost of recruitment, but also this is money that comes into the government in form of NTR. That aside, the biggest challenge it comes with is the time it takes to have this certificate out. You spend over 2-3 weeks waiting to have this certificate, even a month, because just before it was suspended, people needed a lot of time to book, even a month. And of course, this has an effect or directly affects, attracts fines for our members because they have delayed to externalize a particular individual. So that is how terrible it is to the recruitment process. Then it was 79,000. I still believe it is still the same cost. Yes. The biggest challenge with it, based on the fact that they had never found any criminal in the process, because whoever would take as a candidate to Interpol would be past fit, you know. So it has not helped us either find wrong people in form of candidates, and even when we have found people behaving differently when they have been externalized. So, but the fact that it comes with a cost of time, a delay in form of a delay, which attracts penalties, to us would not advocate for it to be back.
The labor externalization program in Uganda is apparently regulated by the Employment Act and the Employment Recruitment of Ugandan Migrant Workers Abroad Regulations of 2022. Now, the objectives of both instruments here is to protect the rights of migrant workers through stringent licensing and placement of procedures which are under the Ministry of Labor, of Gender, Labor and Social Development. And just a week ago, the government is apparently, information from the government did reveal that the government is seeking to streamline the process in a new bill in regards to labor externalization. So in the new proposed employment amendment number 2 bill 2022, they seek to declare particular jobs that are performed by only Ugandans, except in circumstances where Ugandans have entered into an agreement, or where Uganda's government has entered into an agreement with these foreign countries. Now, the bill was tabled before Parliament, that is before the end of the year, by the Minister of Gender, Labour and Social Development, Betty Amongi. So its object is basically to amend the Employment Act 2006 and to ensure that the regulations within the sector of labour externalization, which also include tackling human trafficking, as well working on the safety of Ugandans who are abroad, as well as providing recruitment agencies with a lot of streamlining processes, as well as tracking the employment procedures, providing for severance allowances, as well as employers have been called upon to put in place avenues that will definitely prevent, like what I mentioned here, looking at human trafficking. Then you also go back to the issue to do with sexual harassment. So government suggests that instead of having individuals or the persons practicing or engaging in this particular business of recruiting others, it may be better managed by companies registered here. So with the other issue also, the proposed act provides the minister and provides a platform for the minister to notice in the Gazette, as well as declare a range of jobs that the migrant workers shall not be offered for employment. So with this particular bill, there are provisions that the government, of course, through the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, will be able to at least identify jobs that Ugandans should be doing once they are out of the country, or that they should be seeking, or they should be able to provide the jobs that Ugandans should apply for as they are moving up. So the provisions on the externalization of labor are currently entrenched in regulations made under the Act. However, the government feels that the provisions are better placed in the Act of Parliament. And it's this segmentation that the government has particular jobs that it knows can be better performed by Ugandans. And except in circumstances where Uganda's government will sit down and, of course, have different bilateral relations or a mutual agreement with either the Saudi Arabian government, the Qatarian government, or the United Arab Emirates government, or any other government within the Middle East that is actually getting labor from Uganda. So there is also an issue to do with the penalty, which applies to a person who is knowingly furnishing false information for the purpose of procuring an entry permit or exemption certificate, and is obtaining any document by means of fraud or submits a false or forged document. Because we've got all these cases, and one of the reasons as to why most Ugandans have been deported back, others arrested once they reach the other channels, is because most of them apparently have wrong information about them in the documents that they fill in as they're applying for these placements within the Middle East. Then also others who are definitely trying to procure these particular working permits very fast, they end up lying or they end up putting in information that does not belong to them, which later on in the long run, as they are adopting to the environment in the other countries, it gets back to them. So these are some of the cases that the government has been highlighting down, has been noting down, that are going to be regulated under the bill. So the minister may even make an exemption with the bill for a migrant worker to be employed in a job declared as not available for non-Ugandans, where Uganda has an existing agreement with the foreign country. So if at all the jobs are not available on the agreement that Uganda signed, a Ugandan in a certain circumstance can be able to do it. That is, if at all the minister makes that exemption for them. So this is just a breakdown of the particular bill that is likely to be enacted this very year. Now, the bill prohibits a person to facilitate the illicit or concealed movement of other persons for employment abroad by organizing the departure, transit, or arrival of the persons in Uganda, or give assistance to any organization for that purpose. Let me get this again. The bill prohibits a person to facilitate the illicit or concealed movement of persons for employment. So it should apparently be a labor recruiting agency that is supposed to be taking these individuals out of the country, and this labor recruitment agency has to have a license from the ministry. So an employer, on the other hand, is also prohibited to employ a person whom he or she knows to be unlawfully present in Uganda. So you as well supposed to be present in Uganda lawfully before you seek for the better or greener pastures out of there. And the bill also requires every employer to make available at the place of work, time, space, or facility for breastfeeding employees to tend to their children who are below 36 months. It's also proposed that the act is amended to make it mandatory to every employer to have in place measures that prevent sexual harassment at workplaces. Now, this also goes back to the same situation here in Uganda regarding the level of employment to domestic workers within the country who are apparently, if we are to look at the situation to do with the house, that is the house helpers within the country here, who also have their children, most of them come in with pregnancies and all those things, or most of them end up coming in with their children that they take care of. So the same bill here tries to put all these things into context. And of course, that is it with this particular morning after that. We head into the break, just to quickly remind you that you can kickstart off your investment today, or as well, if you did open up an account with Zabu, the markets are officially open. So use the USSD code *292#. That is for the MTN subscribers there. and Zabu will definitely be a platform for you. Zabu says, my money, my future, and inspired by Alltech East Africa, which says do something new. Now, the only good new thing that you can do is to ensure that you invest in bonds and securities. And of course, you can learn more about the available product, the other available products, so that you can grow your investments. With just a minimum of 15,000 Ugandan shillings and more, you can invest in bonds and securities available. Not only that, these markets open at 8:15 a.m. and close at 3:15 p.m. East African Standard Time. And the only time they are closed full time is on weekends and during public holidays. Zabu, my money, my future. Alltech East Africa says do something new. Well, with that, we're heading into a break. When I do return, I'll be back with sports business, but also Verity Andrew will be here to give you the latest from entertainment business. Good morning.